Okay. So if you guys want me to repeat any part of whatever I'm gonna explain, عادي, just type repeat, like what concept you want me to repeat it, and I'll repeat it. But for the questions, I'm gonna address them all like when we reach the checkpoint. All right? Is this okay with you guys? I'm gonna assume that it's okay. And thank you guys for understanding. Thank you for your like for everything. But let's start. So, electrophysiology of the heart. As the name suggests, it's basically we're going to study the physiology of the electricity of the heart. All right. We all know that the heart is always pumping blood and it's always working. So it's not going to work by itself. It probably needs its own electricity. All right. So this slide, it kind of looks scary and it's very packed, but it's just literally whatever you guys are going to learn. And it's everything that you're going to learn, I think, in all of cardiophysiology. So this lecture is not going to literally, like, it's not going to cover like what, like maybe 10% of this. Like we're only going to cover this, the phases of the action potential and the heart and the, like everything that has to do with the electricity of the heart. So don't worry, this is just an objective slide that has literally nothing to do. It's not that important. Now, in here, we actually start. So we all know that basically for any muscle to contract, we require electricity, right? And for the muscle to contract, it has to undergo through a process where an action potential is produced, right? You take an MSK that the skeletal muscles, they require basically the nervous system to send an electrical stimuli that will basically cause the skeletal muscle to contract. And again, you guys took in GI that basically the autonomic nervous system is gonna like basically send impulses for the smooth muscles to contract. But you know what? In here, the cardiac muscles, they're very special and they're not like any other muscles. Why? Well, basically, the cardiac muscles, they are autorhythmic. And what does autorhythmic mean? Autorhythmic means that they do not require the innervation of the nervous system. They produce their own electricity, all right? And this autorhythmicity is not found in all of the cells that make up the heart. It's only found in those very special cells that are called the pacemaker cells, all right? So the pacemaker cells are the cells, like if you look at the name, it's called pacemaker. So it's basically the cells that kind of make the pace of the heart. So can someone tell me like what's the usual pace of the heart? Like how many beats per minute does like a healthy human being has? 60 to 100, excellent. So basically, these pacemaker cells, specifically the sinoatrial node or the SA node, is the cell that dictates the pace of basically the heart beating, all right? And how does it do that? It does that by basically like producing its own electrical impulse. So it doesn't require the nervous system. It doesn't require anything. It's just like the boss of itself. It causes the formation of electrical impulses that will result in, as you can see in here, in the neighboring cardiomyocytes or the cardiac cells, it will trigger the contraction, all right? Okay, now what we have to know is that those pacemaker cells, they have their own superpower. And you might think, what is the superpower? Well, basically, the superpower is the ability of never stopping. Like how? Like the idea is that any cell, like any muscle cell specifically, it usually has something called resting membrane potential. And I'm pretty sure you guys remember that from MSK. In MSK, basically the skeletal muscle had the resting membrane potential around like, I don't know, negative 80 or something. I don't really remember, but yani, it had a resting membrane potential. Or basically, it's when the muscle is not having any activity, no relaxation, no contraction, all right? But on the other hand, in these pacemaker cells, we have the superpower that is called not having like a resting membrane potential. So technically, the pacemaker cells are always working; they never stop. And how is this possible? Like, okay, our heart is beating, but it's not beating every single second. Well, what happens is we have this phase, which is a very slow, progressive depolarization. And you guys can see it in here. This is the action potential of basically the sinoatrial and the AV node, or the pacemaker cells. So as you can see, it's never flat, all right? It's never like this. We don't have a resting membrane potential, but rather you can clearly see that it slowly increases and reaches this threshold. All right. But on the other hand, if you look at the muscle, like the cardiac muscle, the normal cells, not the pacemaker cells, you can clearly see a straight line in here, which is basically the resting membrane potential. All right. Okay. Now, knowing this, it helps us to understand that basically these cells are very special. All right. Yes, the slow progressive depolarization is the pause between the beats. You know how, guys, like in 1 minute we have 60 to 100. So this slow progressive depolarization is like it's just very slow, and it helps basically like coordinate the beats. All right. Um, so we all know that basically we have a current and it goes through a certain sequence, and this sequence is what causes basically the heart to contract. So if you look in here, we have the sinoatrial node, all right? And if you look in here, it's called pacemaker. And if you look at the like below the atrioventricular node, they don't write pacemaker. And it's weird, right? Because we said both of them are made up of pacemaker cells, all right? So we have to understand that basically all these cells, the pacemaker cells, like the sinoatrial nodes, the atrioventricular node, even the bundle branches and the bundle of His and the Purkinje fibers, they're all capable of producing like electrical stimuli at their own rhythm. All right, but in a healthy heart, the boss, or the leading cell is the sinoatrial node, or the cells that make up the sinoatrial node. And we know that basically the sinoatrial node basically releases impulses every 60 to 100 60 to 100 times every minute, right? So what happens is in the sinoatrial node, they will send those electrical impulses, and then they will travel into where the atrium. And how will it go into the atrium? It will go through Bushman's bundle, all right? And this transmission of the electrical impulse is what will basically trigger the cardiomyocytes, or the cardiac muscle cells, to contract and bring about this action potential that is very different than the action potential we have in the pacemaker. And you can clearly see that in here we have a resting membrane potential, we have an upstroke, and then it goes down. But in here, we only have like slowly, we have an increase, and then a huge, like an upstroke, and then it goes back to normal. So the main idea of this slide, guys, is just to understand that we have two different cells. We have the pacemaker cells and we have the normal cardiomyocytes. The pacemaker cells, they have a superpower, which is basically releasing their own electricity. They have their autorhythmicity. They can produce their own electrical impulses that will control all of the rest of the cardiac muscle cells. Is this clear?
Yes.
Do you have any problems in here? So I'll take this as a no. And then we have to know how the wave, or the electrical impulse, propagates, or basically moves. So it all starts in here in the sinoatrial node, okay? And then the electrical impulse, as I told you, it will go to the left atrium through the Bushman's bundle, and it will go down through the internodal pathway to the AV node. It will go here and down at the same speed, or at the same velocity, all right? So it will it will go in here and it will cause the atrium to contract, and then it will go down and it will stimulate the AV node to complete basically the conduction of the electrical impulse. But a very, very important thing happens here. What happens is that in the AV node, all right, the conduction velocity is a bit slower than the conduction velocity in the sinoatrial node. So basically, the impulse will go, and then it will go here, and then for the electrical impulse to propagate slowly down here, it's going to be at a bit slower rate than basically the movement in here. طب why would it be slower? So it's really interesting if you think of it. Now, if let's say that there is no change in velocity, all right? So let's say that this system, it conducts the speed all at the same rate. What happens is that the atria and the ventricles, they will contract at the same time. So the heart will just like literally squeeze everything in it, all right? And then everything will be left out. So if you technically think of it, the ventricles will not have enough time to fill up with blood, right? So this small delay or this slower conduction velocity is important because this will allow the atria to have enough time to pump the blood into the ventricles. So it will fill up the ventricles. So it's easier for basically, so it's like it's more efficient, and we're going to have more blood for the ventricles to push into the body. All right? Is this point clear? Exactly. So as I said, I'm going to address the questions in the checkpoint. So don't worry, I'm going to address that, but let's move on. So basically, guys, this is everything the slides contains. You just have to know the difference between the two cells and the way that the conduction, like the slower velocity conduction in the AV node, and the reason. So the main reason is for the ventricles to fill up. All right? All right. Next. Now, this slide is just there literally for you guys to remember that we have the pacemaker cells, and they produce their own like electrical impulses. And this slide is just there to remind you that these cells specifically, they have the superpower, which is never resting, all right? So in here, you just have to know that if you look at this graph, the graph never goes through a straight line. You never, like, there is no straight line. So basically there is no resting membrane potential. It's always, we have, as you can see here, the slow progressive depolarization, and then it goes on like the depolarization and the repolarization. And don't worry about the things written in here. By the end of the lecture, inshallah, you're gonna like literally master and know everything that is going on. All right. Now, this slide, the doctor was trying to revisit a concept that I'm pretty sure you guys covered in MSK. Like, the main idea is that for a cell, like each cell has its own electrical property, right? So our body it's not like the cells are not neutral. We have ions that goes in and out of the cells all day long. So basically we kind of have like a charge to each cell, right? So for the cell to have so for the cell to be charged, it requires having an ion channel, right? Like if the cell does not have an ion channel, no charges will flow in or out, so there will not be anything lost. But if a cell has, let's say, an ion channel, which is a sodium ion channel, okay? The resting membrane potential of this cell, or let's call it the charge of the cell, will kinda equal the charge of do you guys remember something called Nernst potential of an ion? I'm not sure if you guys remember that, but it's just a value, okay? And this value dictates basically, like if a sodium, let's say sodium, we know that sodium is more outside the cell compared to inside the cell, all right? So if a sodium moves from outside from outside the cell into the cell, the movement of the charge will cause basically energy. All right. Okay. So it's just, listen, guys. So basically, sodium, when it's found in a space, it's going to have something called Nernst potential. And the Nernst potential of each ion is written here, like the doctor writes it in here. Okay, it's like a fixed value. It's literally a fixed value. It's something that an ion has, right? Like I can't explain it much more because I myself don't know how do they get this value and so on. No need for you guys aslan to know. Just know that each ion has an Nernst potential value. All right. And the doctor wrote the values in here. You guys don't have to memorize them. He just wrote them to explain the idea. All right. So what happens is when a cell is permeable to only sodium, all right, it's only permeable to sodium. So the membrane potential of this cell is gonna try to become close to the Nernst potential of the ion. And if you think of it, it makes sense. Like I have like a bag, and if I put something into it, okay, then then whatever is inside, it will affect the bag, right? Like the bag is, let's say the bag is empty, it has nothing in it. And you know how guys, when you put things into the bag, they balloon up and they become like, they show how they look. Yeah, so basically if it's like closed and it has nothing, zero. But then if I have if the thing I put in it, like I put something in it, it will start to take the shape of this thing. So if you think of it, it's the same way. Once this cell is permeable to this ion, then the resting membrane potential will kind of be the same as its Nernst potential. All right? Is this point clear? Okay, so someone explained it. Thank you. So it's the equilibrium potential of an ion. So like if it measures the ion's movement regarding its electrical and chemical driving forces. Guys, it's nice to know, but like خلاص, if you understand my way, then just stick to it. Do you guys understand it, or shall I like try explain it more? Okay. It's just, guys, I'll go over it as سريع. Just know that when a cell is permeable to any type of ion, the resting membrane potential of that cell will try to be equal to the Nernst potential of the ion. All right? It just tries, because the ion, yeah, sure. So basically the ion movement, okay, it will cause this charge, right? Like, okay, I'll tell you something. Let's say we have a cell and it's 0 volts. Okay, this is, guys, hypothetical. I don't think we have a 0 volt in our, like, it's impossible to have a like 0 charge cell, I think. But let's say, okay, sodium is charged. All right, it's positive, it's positively charged, obviously. So sodium will move down its like concentration gradient from the extracellular into the into like the intracellular like membrane. So it will go from outside the cell into the cell, inside the cell. Okay. Now, when it goes from outside to inside, the cell will start to become more positive, right? So because it becomes more positive, it will start to go like this positive charge. It will slowly try to reach the Nernst potential of sodium. Like if let's say this cell has only sodium, so the point where basically sodium will be equal, like the sodium outside and the sodium inside the cell will be equal, is at positive 60 millivolts. Like this is the charge. Like the cell has to be positive 60 millivolts so that no more cells will go in and out. You get me? Like the movement will be in equilibrium. Do you understand that? Like, is this clear? It's just like the charge at which equilibrium is formed between the outside and the inside of the cell. Okay, guys, the main idea is you have to know that basically when a cell has an ion channel and this ion channel allows basically a certain ion to go through, the cell will start to have a resting membrane potential closer to the nearest potential. All right? If you guys don't understand this point, Adi, tell me at the end of the lecture. I'll try to find a new way to contact me. I'll tell you how exactly it works. Now, let's say let's spice it up and say that a cell is not only permeable to one ion, but rather it's permeable to 2 or 3 ions. So how would it work now? Okay, now I have 2 different forces. So how will I know where the resting membrane potential is? So it's pretty easy, guys. So let's say that this cell is permeable to sodium and potassium. So the resting membrane potential will be literally between the nearest potential of those 2 cells, those 2 ions, I mean. So basically, we know that the nearest is -90 for potassium and +60 for sodium. So if the cell is permeable to both of those ions, then technically the value or the resting membrane potential has to be between those 2 values, right? Don't you think that? It's kind of, guys, common sense, yani. There are 2 forces that are acting, you see, this is going in, this is going out. So basically, it's like tug war, -90, the potassium is trying to pull it towards -90, the sodium is trying to pull it towards +60. So it's going to be somewhere in between those 2 values. All right? So this is the main important point. It's just that if a cell is permeable to a certain ion, then the resting membrane potential will try to equal its nearest potential value. If it's permeable to more than 1, then it's going to be between them. If it's permeable to more than to 3, then it's going to be literally a number that is between all those values. All right? I feel like it's pretty straightforward. If you guys need me to emphasize on it later, inshallah I will. So for now, let's move on. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, we actually reached the checkpoint. So let me check the questions. So someone asked, does the SA node send the impulse to the AV node at the same time as the atria, but the AV node, it just isn't as fast as the SA, so that's why there's a delay? That's literally why there's a delay. So basically the SA node, it will fire electricity. It will go at the same rate to the atria and to the AV, but then AV will be slower in transmitting the electrical impulse. So this will cause the delay, and this will allow the ventricles to fill up. All right? So guys, do you have any more questions regarding whatever I just talked about? Now is the time that you guys can ask anything you want. Do you want me to re-explain something? I can do that. Okay, I'll take this as a no. You guys have 1 more minute to say yes or no. Yalla, guys. Shall I move on? No, it's clear. Everything's clear. Thank you. All right. So, right. How are you guys feeling? Are you yay or the no, just no? I hope you guys are all are the hell yeah, because I'll just take this as a positive sign and I'll assume that you guys are hell yeah, okay? Okay. Moving on. This slide, literally, guys, it is just a revision of what I said earlier. So you can see in here that we have many different classes and subtypes of ion channels. Yeah, we can have an ion, okay, like potassium, and it can have many different channels, and each channel has its own property. And we're gonna see that we actually have 4 potassium channels, and each one has its own property. And we have different classes. And what do we mean by different classes? They can be activated by different, let's say, by different things, you know. Now, this sentence in here, it's literally what we were like discussing the past, I mean, like 5 minutes. The electrical properties of a tissue depend on which ion channels are expressed in the membrane. So it basically depends on what ion is going inside the cell and what, like, you get me? It just depends on what ion is going into the cell or out of the cell, all right? Now, the most important point in this slide is that we have to know that we have 3 main ion channels for the cardiomyocytes and the pacemaker cells. So basically our heart depends on 3 main ions, which are potassium, sodium, and calcium. All right, those are the ions that literally control everything. It controls our heartbeat, it controls everything. All right, all right. Guys, the rest of it you can just read. It's not important. It's literally what I tried to explain before about the nearness potential. Yeah. Now, Dr. Simon kind of like did this thing where he divided the bigger picture into smaller pictures and then he put them all together. It's like a puzzle, you know? So like with each slide, we're gonna have a piece of the puzzle and then at the end, we're gonna just build up the puzzle together. So I mentioned that we have 3 main ions that control the whole process. It controls the beat, the rhythm of the heart. It controls the muscle contraction. They are the boss of everything. All right. So I'll start off with sodium. All right. Sodium is very simple because the sodium channels that are found in the heart are the same exact channels that are found in the muscle and in the nervous tissue. And I'm pretty sure you guys learned the sodium channels that are found in the muscle, but I'm gonna go over it again. So we all know that the sodium channel is basically voltage gated. And I'm pretty sure you guys remember from MSK, or you might not, Adi. Voltage gated means it requires a certain voltage to open up. So basically, we know that we have like different kinds of channels, and each channel is opened by a different stimulus. So the main stimulus in here is the voltage, like the voltage. If the voltage is specifically in this case negative 70 millivolts, then the channel will open. All right, but it's not that easy. We have, like, if you guys look in here, all right, we have, this is the structure of the sodium channel, and we can guys see that there is like 2 hands. Okay, they're not hands, they're like ports. I don't know, guys, but just they're 2 things, 2 structures. All right. What happens is, okay, someone in the chat said, I thought it was negative 60 for pacemaker cells. Is this different for contractile cells? Guys, the voltage gated channels, they open at a certain voltage. So basically it doesn't matter if they're pacemaker cells or they're what is it called, they're in the contractile cells. Once they reach this voltage, they're going to open. So if you think of it at negative 70, they're going to be open, they're going to do whatever they want to do, and then they will slowly, no, it's not a certain voltage for each, it's just that I'll explain that when we reach that. Okay, I don't want to confuse like everyone. So basically, as I told you guys, we have like those 2 arms. This is the activation gate, or the gate that opens when the voltage reaches negative 70. But please, wait, I'll tell you something. In here, it's an example, like example negative 70 millivolts. So the most important thing to take into in consideration is that it opens at negative voltages. I'll make sure of the point you asked about, but for now, let's just stick to, in this slide, let's just stick to negative 70, all right? So basically, when we have, as I just said, we have 2, the activation gate and the inactivation gate. The doctor called them M. I don't know if it's like medically like this or he just gave them a name, I don't know. But he called the activation gate the M gate and the inactivation gate the H gate, all right? All right, so what happens is, let's say this cell is at negative 70 millivolts, or it's at a negative voltage, all right? this will trigger the activation gate to open. Okay, it opens. And once it opens, what happens is that the sodium will go down its concentration gradient, which means we have more sodium outside than inside. So the sodium, it will literally gush through. You can see in here, guys, once it opens, the sodium will start going in really fast, all right? But what happens is, because we activated the activation gate and we have this upstroke or like very rapid inward current. Why is it inward? Because as we said, sodium goes from outside the cell into the cell. So we have a strong inward positive. It's important to know that it's positive current, all right? Because sodium is positively charged. So obviously the current is going to be positive. It's not going to be negative. So the sodium will gush inside, it will go inside, all right? And this rapid, like let's say buildup of positive charges will cause the cell to get depolarized, all right? I'm pretty sure you guys know that from ASCII. Depolarization means the cell has to become more positive, all right? So the depolarization of the cell, the activation of the activation gate, or like, you know, like the negative voltage, all of these will basically trigger or activate the inactivation gate. So if you think of it, once the activation gate is activated, the inactivation gate is activated too, all right? Because activation gate is activated and then sodium is going to go in, activation gate will open, the cell will start depolarization. This will all trigger the inactivation gate to basically activate too. So I'm activating the inactivation gate, so I'm activating the closing of this gate. I'm sorry if this is confusing, but we know that the inactivation gate will inactivate the channel. So if I trigger the inactivation gate or I activate the inactivation gate, I am triggering it to stop the process. So once the activation gate is activated, and the sodium goes in and we have depolarization, all of this will trigger the H gate or the inactivation gate to slowly start closing. So you can see that basically in here, it's written slow closing triggered a threshold. So basically the sodium will start gushing in very rapidly because we have a concentration gradient. So the sodium will go in, and this will cause the inactivation gate to slowly start closing the channel, all right? تمام? Is this part okay, or did I confuse you بالactivation of inactivation gate? If you're confused, guys, عادي tell me, I can repeat this part. All clear. Perfect. So this is everything about sodium. We're gonna understand why is all what we talked about important at the end of the lecture. But now we're gonna move on to the next, what is it called? The next ion channel, which is, I think, potassium, but wait. Why is it not working? Wait. Okay. So potassium. Potassium is now, like, I know, guys, if you look at this slide, you're gonna panic and you're gonna be like, oh my god, there's so many potassium channels. What is this? Don't worry, guys, it's easy. Take it piece by piece. So first of all, potassium. Potassium is more in the cell compared to out. So if I open a potassium channel, what will happen? Will it move in or out? Wait, when the inactivation gate closes, does it open again to make room for the activation gate to close? Listen, activation gate, probably this is what happens with, wait, let's go back. I'm sorry, guys. Or whoever is asking, can I explain to you this after this? Like, can I explain it at the end? Okay. I just don't want to confuse everyone. Okay, so as someone said, it goes out, which is true because we have a lot of potassium inside the cell. We don't want the potassium in the cell, we want it outside. It goes down its concentration gradient. So when we have a potassium, when we have a potassium channel, what will happen? It will just leave outside the cell. And if it leaves outside the cell, this means the cell will become negatively charged, right? Because positive charges are leaving the cell, so it's going to be negatively charged. So what we guys have to know is that we have 4 different potassium channels, all right? And since we have 4, then probably they are stimulated or activated by different stimuli, and they have their different function, all right? So we'll start off with the inward rectifier, all right? I said all right like 10 times. Anyways, the inward rectifier, as you can see, the doctor like wrote in bold, literally it's in bold, confers stable resting potential. So what he's trying to say is that the inward rectifier is just there to maintain the resting membrane potential. And we all know that the inward rectifier, because it maintains the resting membrane potential, so it's only found in the cardiomyocytes. It's not found in the pacemaker cells. All right? Is this clear? Because like I told you guys, like the pacemaker cells, they do not have a resting membrane potential. So it makes sense inward rectifier potassium channels will not be present there. So in a normal cardiac cell or a cardiomyocyte, we're gonna have this inward rectifier. It's gonna only open when basically the membrane potential is negative. So it will just try to pull. It will try to pull the membrane potential towards the nearest potential of potassium. So it's gonna try to make it more negative, negative, negative. All right. This is literally it about the first one. You just guys have to know that it's usually found in cardiomyocytes or normal cardiac muscle cells. It's not found in pacemaker cells. Yes, it only opens when the MP is negative because it's just literally making it more negative. Okay, so if the membrane potential is positive, it's gonna close. All right. Now, on the other hand, we have the transient. On the other hand, we have the transient outward potassium current. So guys, if you look at the, like literally, if you look at the name of the, if you look at the name of the channel, all right, it's called transient outward potassium current. So you can guys know by yourself that it will only open for a very short time, all right? So it will open for what, like, I don't know for how long, but it's gonna be very short. So it's gonna open, the potassium will go out, and then it will close like directly because it's very transient or very short, all right? So as you can see, us on the doctor wrote rapid repolarization, all right? So when does this happen? And again, guys, this only happens in, what is it called? This is only found in the cardiomyocyte. And I'll explain this specifically later at the end. But those two, number 1 and number 2, they're not found in the pacemaker cells. They're only found in cardiomyocytes. So the transient outward current, it will open, okay, when the membrane potential is positive, or when basically the cell is depolarized. And we're going to see this in the normal, like the normal contractile cells in the muscle, in the muscles in the heart. Okay, so basically the normal cardiomyocytes, they will basically depolarize, all right? So basically it's going to be resting membrane potential, and then they'll depolarize, and then once it reaches a positive membrane potential, it will open. Those transient outward potassium current will channels will open, and then they will cause a small repolarization. So basically, let's say the membrane potential reached positive 30, which is basically the nearest, let's say, potential of sodium, because sodium is the one that causes depolarization. This will trigger the transient outward potassium current channels to open, and then the potassium is going to leave outside the cell, and we're going to have a small decrease. It will go down a bit to the negative side. All right, is this clear? Okay, someone asked, it opens when the MP is negative. Isn't this hyperpolarization? Don't think of it that way. We don't take it to the extremes. It's just trying to keep it negative, right? Okay, so it's just like trying to get it more and more negative. It's not trying it, it's not taking it to the extreme negative side. So we don't think of it as hyperpolarization. It's making it negative. It just maintains it. You get me? Yeah. Okay. So, is this all right, guys? I'll move on to the last two. So the last two are technically the same one. They're one channel. They're called the delayed rectifier potassium current channel. But this delayed rectifier, okay, it has two components. It has a rapid and a slow component, all right? So the rapid component of it will, as you can see, guys, rapid component. So it's gonna open rapidly. It will cause potassium to go outside very fast, and then it will close, and then the slow component will take over. It will slowly open and slowly close. All right? That's literally it. Yani, and this happens at the end of the, like, this one here is the main cause of the repolarization. All right, and you can clearly see the doctor say that delayed rectifier currents underlie action potential repolarization. So for the actual repolarization after the contraction happened, okay, so if we want the muscle to relax, we're gonna depend on the delayed rectifier potassium current channels. All right, and you just have to know that we have a rapid and we have a slow. The rapid will open rapidly and it will cause a lot of like potassium to go out, and then it will close directly, and then the slow will come in and it will slowly open and slowly close. And it's just, guys, IKR, R is for rapid and S is for slow, and those are the main potassium channels that are found in the pacemaker. Because if you remember, guys, the way the like slide, the not the slide, the action potential of the pacemaker cell looked like, it was just depolarization and then an upstroke and then repolarization, right? But this repolarization is mainly caused by this potassium channel. Okay, and in the notes section of the doctor, I saw that he wrote specific genes that are responsible for the IKR and the IKS. You guys just memorize this. I don't know if it's important. To be honest, like to me, it's not, but I think the doctor might ask since he actually wrote it. You can guys ask the doctor if it's important or not, but back in my days, we never took that aslan. But yeah, moving on. It's funny, I say back in my days as if it's like 10 years ago. It's just like 2 years ago. Anyways, moving on. Is potassium clear? Do you want me to summarize potassium acidia or خلاص you're sick of potassium? No, it's fine. Good. Yes. خلاص. Perfect. Now moving on to the calcium channels. Calcium channels, we only have two channels, okay? We have the T type and the L type, and the doctor literally, guys, if you just memorize this slide, it's amazing. The doctor gave you like a way to remember it, and he literally like gave you everything. So look, we have the T type. The T type for T, it's tiny T, transient. So basically, tiny and transient. So tiny, it allows only a small amount of calcium in, and transient, it closes directly or rapidly closes. And if you look and read like the things he wrote, look, it activates rapidly, so that's why it's transient, and relatively small conductance compared to the other one. So basically, small amount of calcium will leave, and this explains the tiny. All right. So the T type, it's special. Okay, and I'm calling it special because it starts with the letter of my name, T. Anyways, what is it called? It's special because it contains, it's only found in the pacemaker cells. okay? And it's found in the atrial tissue, but it's not there in the ventricles. And I think this is important. I think he might ask this if he doesn't want to like confuse you in other questions. Like it might be an easy question, but you just have to know that it's there in the pacemaker and in the atrial tissue. It's not there in the ventricles, all right? So the main difference between the T and the L, other than the tiny and transient, the large and the long lasting, is that this channel opens at negative 55 millivolts, while the L type will open at negative 40 MV. All right. So the T type, it's tiny, it's transient, it opens for a short period of time, it's only found in the pacemaker and the atria, but not in the ventricle, and it opens at negative 55 millivolts. And this is really important because as I explained the actual graph, you're gonna see clearly like the significance of that. All right. Moving on to the L type. The L type, L, I think L is like that. I don't know. Anyways, L, it's large, so it allows a lot of calcium in. Okay, guys, I forgot to tell you or ask you this important question. So if we have a lot of calcium outside and small amount of calcium in, so the calcium will go in or out. I think you said it. In, exactly. So it will go in. So basically, let's recap I said here, sodium and calcium move into the cell, potassium out of the cell. All right? All right. So in here, L-type, large conductance. So what does L-type large conductance mean? It allows large amounts of calcium inside the cell. Long lasting, command the same. It lasts for a longer period of time. It's not transient. It doesn't just open and close. All right? All right. And it's found throughout the heart. If you guys think of it this way, the heart is large, okay? Like the heart is large, so it contains L type, but the SA node or the pacemaker cells are tiny, so it has the T type, all right? I hope it makes sense. And the L type, it opens at negative 40 millivolts, all right? And it inactivates more slowly than T-type. Again, we said it's long-lasting. And the calcium will enter inside the cell. So again, guys, if a positive charged ion goes into the cell, what will happen to the cell? Will it depolarize or repolarize? Do you think calcium will cause repolarization or depolarization? This is my question. Just from the charge. Exactly, depolarization. And someone asked, by throughout the heart, do they mean the contractile cells? Because pacemaker cells are part of the heart. Yep, the L type is found in contractile cells and in the pacemaker cells. Okay? Okay. Now, this is the last slide, the last piece of the puzzle before we go, guys, and start like putting the big picture together. There is channel that allows more than one. It's not specific, it's mixed conductance. So it does not only allow, let's say, sodium per se, go in, it allows more than one ion. And in this case, it allows sodium and potassium. And the movement of sodium and potassium into and out of the cell will generate something called the funny current. Okay. And it's funny, guys, because I have been in med school for the past 3 years and I had no idea why is it called funny. And then today, when I was like reading your slides, I realized that apparently they call it funny because the people who figured it out, okay, usually the ion channels were triggered or opened by depolarization, and then this ion channel, it was the opposite. It was literally triggered by hyperpolarization. So the scientists or the doctors that figured this out found this funny, and that's why they called it funny. Like, to me, that's pretty lame, but yeah. Okay. So the idea is, okay, we have a ion channel. I am an ion channel, okay? I only allow, I allow both sodium and potassium to go in and out of the cell, okay? Okay, so sodium will go in, potassium will go out, and it's literally in the same channel, which is me. For this channel to be activated, okay, it will require the cell to be hyperpolarized. What do we mean by hyperpolarized? It is at a very, very, very negative potentials. Like, it's very negative. And this is usually done by potassium. It causes the cell to become super positive, super negative. And I think one of the girls said, "Isn't this hyperpolarization?" Well, yeah, it is. I don't know. So when potassium, like usually potassium, or when it becomes very negative, we're gonna have the cell is gonna be hyperpolarized. Okay, so when a cell is hyperpolarized, this will trigger what? This current, which is the funny current, and it will not trigger it by itself. It requires as well CAMP or cyclic AMP, or basically energy. All right. So basically, for the funny current to start, or to be activated, or for sodium and potassium to go in and out this channel, the membrane potential of the cell has to be extremely negative, okay, like hyperpolarized, like lower than the usual resting membrane potential. Let's like whatever, like it has to be extremely negative, all right? And it requires cyclic AMP. It's pretty easy, guys. That's it. Yani, this is what you have to know about funny current. But I wanted to ask you, do you remember at the beginning of the lecture, I said that some cells have a superpower? What were they? And what was the superpower? I want to see if you guys are concentrating with me. So what was the cell that has a superpower? Exactly, pacemaker cells that do not have resting membrane potential. All right, so here is what causes these cells to be like superpower. So this is literally the cause of them having the superpower. They have this funny current, and this funny current is the reason why we have this slow progressive depolarization that we talked about. So if you want to think of the pacemaker cells, if you want to think of their superpower, which is not having a resting membrane potential and continuously being in this state of slow progressive depolarization, then think of the funny current, all right? So this is the cause of all the superpower. And it is activated by hyperpolarization, which means the cell is very negative, like at the membrane potential that is extremely negative, and it should have energy for it to be activated. Now, there is this point the doctor was saying that I kind of find, like, ignore what he says in here, but it's important to know that basically I told you guys that this channel, it allows the movement of two ions, sodium and potassium, right? So you might think, is it making the cell more positive, or is it making the cell more negative, right? Because like literally potassium in, sodium out, which is stronger? What is happening, right? So what happens is that the sodium goes out, right? The sodium goes in and the potassium goes out. But the sodium in here is way stronger. Imagine, like, they did the calculations, which I don't know how they do it, or I don't think even it's important. You just have to know that sodium driving force is 4 times stronger than potassium. So technically, you can think of it as the funny current is mainly caused by sodium and a little bit caused by potassium. All right? That's all you have to know. Is this clear? So funny channels, they are the cause of the superpower. They cause the slow progressive depolarization of the pacemaker cells. to activate those funny currents, you have to hyperpolarize the cell and provide energy, which is cyclic AMP. And basically it causes basically a positive, like it has a positive impact on the charge of the cell because sodium is stronger than the potassium. All right, is this clear? So guys, did you see the puzzles? Are they all clear for you? Because now we're gonna put it all together. Guys, please say something. I'm gonna cry. Did I confuse you? Alhamdulillah. As long as it's clear, I'm happy. Okay, I have questions for you. This is the last slide, which is probably, I don't understand why this slide is here because my colleague Naim is going to explain the excitation, contraction, coupling, and it's more important there than here. But guys, we have this channel, right? It's called sodium. Oh no, wait. We have this channel, which is called sodium calcium exchanger. So it's literally, the name says it all. It exchanges sodium for calcium. That's it. Calcium is going to be released out and sodium in. That's it. That's it. And then the sodium that is in is going to be like literally pumped out by ATP and like by ATPs, like, you get me? So the whole idea is that we have this exchanger, which is sodium, sodium calcium exchanger. This is the only way calcium can, no way, you had it in the TBL. So this is the only way basically calcium leaves the cell. It's through this exchanger. And to compensate, so we're pumping in 3 sodium and we don't want the sodium in really. So we just use it for ATP, like use it in this ATPase to basically balance it out. All right. Naim is probably going to cover this and he's going to talk about its importance in contraction. So I'm not going to go over it a lot. Now it's time for a quiz. Yalla guys. What is the main route for getting calcium out of the cell? Oh my God, it's literally the question. I should put this question somewhere else, not directly after the point. Obviously, it's C. But guys, look at this. Wait, I hope it works. Look, it's a heart. Guys, أنا كتير كنت مبسوطة بهاي. It was like something that really made my day. So yeah, so the answer is C. Okay. And guys, the presentation is full of hearts because we're doing CVP and, hearts and stuff. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. Here is where everything starts. Like, guys, كل اللي كنا عم نسويه, it was easy. It was like very, very easy. Like, it's just the pieces of the puzzle. All right. Something like next. Okay, I'm gonna explain those 2 slides in this slide. All right. So here we're talking about pacemaker cells, or the cells that make up the sinoatrial node, the atrioventricular node, and the Purkinje fibers. Okay, those are the cells that do not have a resting membrane, and the cells that basically dictate the rhythmicity of the heart, or basically they tell the heart, okay, beat. Okay, I need 60 beats, I need 70 beats, etc. All right. So look at this very okay? In the pacemaker, all right, we only have 3 channels, all right? We don't have the first 2 potassium channels. Remember them, the transient and the inward current? Those 2 are not present here. So we only have calcium, sodium. Even sodium, we don't have the sodium channel that we discussed at the beginning. We have the funny current channel. Remember how I told you guys it has a superpower, and the superpower is because of the funny current? Yeah, well, that's how sodium is here. But so Think of it this way. Pacemaker cells, 3 channels. The funny current, calcium channels, both L-type and T-type. Because we said that pacemaker cells, they have the T-type, right? The special one, the letter that starts with my name, T, right? So they have both the L and the T, and they will have basically the delayed rectifier, because I told you guys, remember in the potassium, I told you that the only way the pacemaker cells repolarize is through the delayed rectifier potassium channels. All right? All right. So let's take this piece by piece. Okay, I just remembered something. In the beginning, someone asked me about the sodium channels, and I said, no, they only work at -70. Well, here is your answer. In here, the potassium channel is not the potassium channel that we talked about at the beginning, but rather it's the funny current channel. You get me? It's the mixed conductance channel. That's why it is activated by -60, not by -70. Is this clear for whoever was asking? Okay. Now, we will start with the funny current. So we said the funny current is a mixed conductance channel, and it's activated by hyperpolarization and cyclic AMP. So, okay, hyperpolarization, it's really negative. It's -60, all right? And in this case, we don't really have a resting membrane potential. So let's just assume that -60 is so negative and it's hyperpolarized, all right? Exactly, voltage-gated channels that are the first one, the sodium voltage-gated channels, they're not in pacemaker cells. Exactly. So we only have funny current channels here. So again, what was I saying? I forgot. So basically, the funny channels, we said they're activated by hyperpolarization and cyclic AMP. Let's just assume -60 is very negative and it's hyperpolarized. All right? All right. And then let's assume that the person is healthy and everything, and it has a lot of energy and stuff, so it has cyclic AMP. What will happen? The funny current will open. All right? All right. So they will open, and they will cause the charge to go slowly up. So it's -60. It will start to get a little bit more positive, because as you guys remember, we said that the funny current, the stronger ion is the sodium. So technically, it is causing positive charges, or it has a positive impact on the cell. So it will go slowly from -60 into -55. And if you guys remember, at -55 millivolts, what channels open? The T-type open, all right? So the T-type calcium channel, it will open at -55. Let's remember, what is the T-type channel? It's basically tiny, and it causes a transient, like transient, let's say, entry of calcium. So what happens is at -55, calcium channels will open, and then calcium will go in, and it will cause the cell slowly to become more and more positive until it reaches -40. Once it reaches -40, that's when everything changes. At -40, طبعا I said no, the T is tiny and transient, so basically probably once it reaches -40, they'll close because they're transient. They don't stay like open for much longer, yani. So once it reaches -40, that's when the threshold is there. The calcium L-type channels, they'll open, and then we're gonna have this rapid upstroke. You can clearly see it, yani guys, it's literally -40, and then it suddenly becomes positive, like something, like let's say +15, I don't know. It's just a positive, okay? So it goes from all the way from -40 up to positive, and this is all because of calcium. And this is the rapid upstroke, and this is the depolarization. This is the rapid depolarization. So basically, think of it this way. The slow progressive depolarization is mainly due to the funny current, which is mainly due to the sodium that is going in because it's strong. And once it goes like up to -55, the calcium T-type, okay guys, the T-type will start command to kick in and slowly push the membrane potential up to the threshold. Once the threshold is reached, خلاص, the rapid depolarization will happen, and it's because of what ions? Please tell me. Because this is a very important calcium, exactly. Because now when we go into the contractile cells, we're going to see that the ion that causes depolarization is not the same, and this is what basically like makes it different. All right, so for pacemaker cells, what causes the rapid depolarization? Calcium ions. All right, and what channel is it? The L type. Also, think of it, guys. We need huge amounts of calcium to cause this upstroke. So those huge amounts will only like be provided if we have a large conductance and long lasting. That's why it's the L type, not the T type. All right. Yeah, the rapid depolarization is due to the L type. Now, after the cell is depolarized, خلاص, the electrical impulse is released, because again, guys, think of it this way: the pacemaker cells, they only release electrical impulses. They Yeah, so let's say after this is there, خلاص صار في عنا basically the contraction or the release of action potential. So خلاص, we're done. What will we do? We're gonna repolarize it, right? And then you remember, guys, I'm pretty sure you remember from potassium, we said no, the delayed rectifier is the main channel that causes repolarization in both pacemaker cells and in what is it called? And contractile cells. So technically in here, at 3, where we have repolarization, what happens is the delayed rectifier potassium channels, the rapid and the slow, both of them will open, but we said rapid opens faster and then it closes faster, and then the slow opens slowly and closes slowly, and they will result in the hyperpolarization of the cell. And then it's going to be like it's like a loop. Yeah. Okay, so listen, the repolarization of any cardiac cell, whether it's a pacemaker or a contractile cell, it will be through the delayed rectifier potassium channel, the rapid and the slow. And we're gonna see that in the next slide when I explain the contractile. Okay, that's literally it, what I said after. After we reach this, the positive, okay, what happens is, and we want to repolarize. خلاص, the electrical impulse is sent to the cardiomyocytes. We don't need we don't need the SA node to be active. So what will happen? The delayed rectifier will open and the potassium will start to basically go out, and then بصير في عنا, it will start to become more negative, and then it will start again to slowly, progressively go through the depolarization. All right? Is this clear? Do you guys have any problem in this? What opens first is the rapid. It's just from the name, guys. Rapidly. So rapid. So it rapidly opens. The conductance is rapid, and then it rapidly closes. And then the slow, it takes time to open, and then it slowly closes. All right? Okay, so خلاص, I go to the next part. The next slide is literally a summary of this. I'll go read it. So again, literally, it's just again what I said. I'll start from 4. I don't know why the doctor started from 0. So 4 in here, the closure of the IKR and IKS. What is IKR and IKS? It's the delayed rectifier potassium channels, the rapid and the slow. So basically in here, they're not going to be open, obviously. Like, see, once they reach this point, they're going to close. And then what will take over? The funny channel, all right? And then we're going to have influx of sodium. There's going to slowly depolarize the cell until it reaches negative 55. Once it reaches negative 55, the T-type will open. And then the T-type will raise it up to negative 40. That's the threshold. The L-type will open. And then the upstroke will happen. You see in here, upstroke, opening of L-type calcium channel and influx of calcium. It's really important, again, I'm stressing on this. It's really important to remember depolarization in pacemaker cells is due to the calcium, all right? And then after we reach khalas, after the signal is sent and everything is all right, we need to go back to normal. Or let's say like we need to go back to this state. This is the normal state, not the normal resting membrane, because we said there's no resting membrane here. Anyways, so what happens is the IKR and the IKS, which is both of them are potassium channels, the rapid and the slow, the delayed rectifier, they will open and everything else will close. And then we're gonna go all the way down back here. And if you want, guys, you can literally see this is what is happening. You see at the beginning, sodium will increase and then it's going to just decrease, khalas, because we don't need it anymore. And then calcium will increase. This is the T. The T1 is going to bring it up all the way to -40. Once it reaches -40, the T-type will just close and then the L will take over. And you can see that, guys, you can see how huge the surge of like ions is. All right? And you see at the end, potassium will like go in. Tamam? Is this part clear? Yalla guys, just type clear or say yes or say anything.
Clear.
Okay. You probably have a question after this. Allah. Wait. Okay. Now we go to the normal cells. The cardiomyocytes or the normal cardiac cells, the contractile cells. Now in here it's different. Why is it different? Because first of all, we have a resting membrane potential, which is literally here. You can see it. It's like a straight line. Okay, so there is this straight line, which is the resting membrane potential. And then, guys, if you remember, I said there was a channel that causes that basically causes like the resting membrane potential to become more negative. Who remembers that? Or basically it maintains the resting membrane potential. Exactly, the N-word rectifier. So basically at 4, the only important like ion channel to know is the N-word rectifier, the potassium N-word rectifier. It will just maintain the resting membrane potential. And then at this point in here, what happens is the electrical stimulus that came from the pacemaker cell, it will activate which cells? The voltage gated sodium channel. All right. So basically, suddenly the membrane potential, not the resting, the membrane potential will reach -70, and this will cause the sodium to open. All right. So the voltage gated sodium channel will open. Remember the M gate and the H gate, and then it will cause an influx of sodium. So all of this, you see this, woo, the shoot hikari, literally, it goes all the way up. Do you see this? This is the influx of sodium. So sodium is going into the cell. Okay, I am not 100% sure. But if you think of it in common sense, like that's how, like I was looking at, when I was reviewing this, I was looking at this and I'm like, this is literally at -90. It has to reach -70. The only stimulus that will cause the -90 to reach -70 is literally the electrical signal that is sent by the pacemaker, right? So that's how I thought of it. So basically what happens is once the electrical signal by the pacemaker is sent, they will have basically an increase to -70, and this will cause basically the opening of the sodium channels, okay? You can ask your doctor to make sure like more, but honestly, this is what makes sense to me and this is what I understand. Yeah, it will increase in charge up to like -70. Remember, guys, in the first slide, I told you the N-word rectifier. No, sorry, not the N-word rectifier. In the first slide, the voltage gated sodium channel, I told you that it opens due to voltage. It opens at negative voltages. So basically, if you look, once it reaches -70, or maybe it opens here, I'm not sure, you can ask the doctor about that. But what makes sense is that once it's at -70 or it's at a negative voltage, the voltage gated sodium channel, it will open. Once it opens, sodium will gush in. بصير عندنا a lot of sodium inside the cell. The charge of the cell will become more positive, all right? So since it will become more positive, it will shoot all the way up here, all right? And this phase is literally the depolarization phase, all right? So see, this is the difference between a pacemaker cell and a normal cardiomyocyte or a normal cardiac cell. The normal cardiac cell, it's depolarized by sodium, but on the other hand, a pacemaker cell is depolarized by what? By calcium. Okay? And guys, this is a very important point. And if it's not important for now, it's important for later. Literally in third year, you're gonna take like I'm sure you guys like took this lecture where what it's called cardiac arrhythmia. So basically you're gonna learn how to basically control cardiac arrhythmia or how to like treat it. So the pharmacological treatment is literally it targets the depolarization. So if we want to like decrease the contractibility of the heart, which is like the cardiomyocyte, we're going to target sodium. But if we want to decrease the firing of the SA node or the depolarization of basically the, what is it called? The pacemaker cell, we're going to work on calcium. All right? This is not your level. I'm just giving you an idea of how important this like idea is. Is it clear? Please say clear. خلاص? I go to the next part. Okay. Once we reach the positive 30, okay, we're at positive 30. Let's say, I'm not sure if it's positive 30, but I know it's at positive here. I think it is 30 because this is 40. So it's at positive 30. What will happen? Do you remember the channel that will open at positive charges? What was it? There was a channel that opens at positive charges. Do you remember? The transient. Yep, exactly. So the transient potassium channel, it will open because it's positive. It will trigger its opening. It will open, and then we're gonna have, you see this one, the early repolarization. This phase, we're gonna have a slow, we're gonna have like rapid. We're gonna have potassium, and then it will close. But basically, we can see how it's slowly going down because remember how potassium leaves the cell? So when a positive charge leaves the cell become more negative, right? So the transient potassium channel is what causes this early repolarization or phase 1. All right? Is this clear? Yeah, sure. So basically, we reach positive 30 in here. Once we reach positive 30, once the membrane potential is positive, what happens is it will literally trigger the transient, as you can guys see here, it's called transient outward potassium channels. These channels, they're there, okay? Like once they sense that it's positive, they're gonna open. And once they open, they're gonna cause potassium to leave the cell. So if a positively charged particle or ion leaves the cell, what will happen to the cell? It will become negative, right? So you can see literally the decrease, like it was like a positive 30 and then starts slowly to go like, I don't know, a positive like 15 or 18. You get me? So the idea is that it causes early repolarization or early decrease in the voltage, all right? Or the membrane potential. Is this clear? Okay. The doctor here said that the sodium channels will inactivate. Yeah, so basically, once they reach here, they stop working, and then the, what is it called? The transient outward potassium channels will take over. This is pretty clear. And then we're gonna have a plateau phase. If you guys look in here, we don't have an increase, neither do we have a decrease. Like it's not an increase, a very rapid increase, and it's not a very rapid decrease. Like compare this to this. Isn't this rapid and isn't this like very slow or like it's nothing is happening, right? So technically in here it's very steep. I don't know why, but exactly. So what happens is in here Okay, guys, in this level, guys, listen, it's a plateau. So technically it's gonna be straight, but I don't know why it's slanted here, but it's a plateau. So if you wanna like understand the point of it, just imagine it as a straight line. So when it's a plateau, wait, it's a plateau, all right? So why is it a plateau? Because at in here, okay, we're gonna start having the opening of L-type calcium channels, all right, because it's slowly getting negative. So it will start to open the L-type calcium channels, all right, and at the same time, the delayed rectifier potassium channels will open. So calcium channels will open, the L-type, guys, because you remember we said the T-type is not found in cardiomyocytes. So if we say calcium channel in a cardiomyocyte, it's directly L-type, all right? So the L-type calcium channel, it will open, all right? And the delayed rectifier potassium channel will open. Both of them will open. And if you go back here, I'll show you. If we go back here, you see this? We said that calcium goes out, potassium goes in. So it's kind of an equilibrium, don't you think? Like literally calcium out, potassium in, and sodium is just like, because if you think of it, the same amount that is putting 3 sodium in is letting potassium out. Aren't they? This is not the T-type. This exchange is found in all of the heart. It's not a T-type. Wait, guys, listen. The doctor wrote in here ventricular contractile, so, like this, okay? Just assume that this is for all, the atrial and the ventricular. And when we say calcium, just say L-type, all right? Unless like the T-type is only there if it's a pacemaker cell. I know on the slide it's written that it's found in the atrium, but in all over the lecture, the doctor did not cover how does the T-type affect the atria. So guys, don't go into this and don't think of it. خلاص. Just stick to pacemaker cells. What is it called? They have the T-type. L-type is an atria and ventricle. All right? Is this clear? تمام. هلا, where did I stop? The plateau phase. In the plateau phase, what happens is the L-type calcium channels and the potassium delayed rectifiers channels, they'll start opening, both of them at the same time. So think of it, we're gonna have something that will depolarize. Calcium, what does it do? It depolarizes. And sodium, potassium, what does it do? It repolarizes. So basically something is depolarizing the cell and then repolarizing the cell. So technically they cancel each other out and we have nothing. And this is why we have the plateau phase. All right? Is this clear? So the plateau phase, we have 2 different channels that open. The L-type calcium channel and the delayed rectifier potassium channel. All right? And the delayed, both of them, they will result in a balance in which, like if you think of it, calcium will go in, depolarize the cell, but then the potassium will go out and it will cause repolarization. They will cancel each other out, and then we're gonna have the plateau phase. All right? Good? Phase 1 equal transient and 2 equals delayed. Yep. In phase 1, the only potassium channel that open, literally phase 1, when you think of phase 1, transient potassium channel. What does transient potassium channel do? Early repolarization. And then when number 2, like phase 2 is there, then the delayed will open and the calcium L-type will open. So we're gonna have a balance. They'll cancel each other out. All right? Clear? Is the 2 clear? It's really easy, and you guys, it's just that one ion is gonna cause depolarization, the other will cause repolarization. They're acting on the same place, same time, same everything, so they'll cancel each other out. It's like 1 minus 1 equals 0. All right? Can I move on? Please, everyone respond. Okay. After that, after the plateau, what happens is that خلاص the contraction happened. If you guys can see us on, look here. This green thing is the contraction. So it starts with the upstroke, or with the action, like with the depolarization. It starts, and then if you guys think of the plateau is just there to prolong it, you know? So when we have the plateau, it's like, it's kind of a prolonged period of time. So you can see the action potential or the contraction will happen. Ooh, it goes all the way in here, the contraction. Once phase 2 ends, like you can literally see, guys, once phase 2 ends, the like relaxation will happen. All right? So we literally, here's the contraction. Halas, the contraction ended. We wanted to relax now. What will happen? Guys, yellow, I went over this a lot of times. What will cause repolarization? Yep. So basically, the delayed potassium rectifiers, they will cause repolarization. So literally the rapid will open first, and then the slow will open, and then we're gonna reach the resting membrane potential, and ta-da, we have a contraction. That's it. Like literally that's it. So let's go over it again. At 4, we have the resting membrane. The only thing that is open is the, what was it? Tell me. At 4, guys, resting membrane. What was literally the only channel that we said? Exactly, the inward rectifier. It's the only one. So the inward rectifier will be open at 4. It will maintain the resting membrane potential. And then electrical signal from the pacemaker came. It asked us to contract. What will happen? The voltage-gated sodium channels, they will open. They will cause this increase, literally, yes, it will cause this increase of sodium and an increase in the positive charge in the cell until we reach the maximum. Once we reach in here, what happens? We need the early repolarization. What causes the early repolarization? The transient. Excellent. So basically the transient, literally, yeah. So the transient will cause early repolarization. It will open for a short, it's called transient. So it will open for a short period of time. And if you guys look at this, it's very short, okay? And then the plateau will come. Once we see the plateau, we know that we have two forces that are tugging against each other and they're not causing anything. So it's basically the L-type calcium causing calcium to come in and depolarizing, and the delayed rectifier, it will go up, okay? It will allow the potassium to go out, exactly. So these two, they'll cancel each other, and then we're gonna have a plateau. And then once the contraction is done in here, what happens is, and خلاص, we don't need the balance, we don't need the plateau anymore. So the only change that will happen, literally, meaning the only change between 2 and 3 is that the what is it called? The potassium will close. Sorry, not the potassium, the calcium will close and the potassium will stay open. If you guys think of it, the difference between 2 and 3 is just the calcium closing, because at 2 we said the delayed rectifier will open. So the delayed rectifier is open from here. It will stay open all the way till here. But the only difference between 2 and 3 is that the L-type is not going to be there in the repolarization, in the rapid repolarization, because خلاص, we don't want something to prevent the repolarization. All right? Is this clear or did I confuse you? All right. So tada, guys, this is literally it for this part. And you can see, guys, literally here what happens to the ions. And here sodium peaks, and then potassium will decrease, and it will only peak in here in the rapid repolarization. Calcium is going to be like equal all over into. All right? Yellow next. Yellow. Answer this question. What channel closes at the repolarization on the SA node? I just said it literally. C, calcium channels. Who thinks it's calcium? Yalla. I don't want only one person to answer. Guys, if someone wants to open their mic, I'm so happy to hear your voices, Adi. Tell me why C. It closes at the repolarization. Guys, it's SA node. Actually, C is correct. I'll show you it. Allah. Why is C correct? Can someone tell me? Can someone explain? If not, I can go over it. Yalla, guys. ما حدا بده يشرح? So guys, think of it. What causes depolarization in SA node? Yalla, tell me. What causes depolarization? Exactly, because CA closing will be more negative inside. Guys, remember, the sodium and the SA node is literally the potential of it is just like this, like the progressive increase, and then we have the depolarization and the repolarization. We said that the depolarization is caused by L-type calcium channels, right? Right? Okay, so exactly, calcium, the L-type calcium channels is what caused depolarization. So for depolarization is caused by calcium channels. For repolarization to start, what has to close? The calcium channel. So basically the rectifier or the potassium, the delayed rectifier can open. Okay, is this clear? So perfect. Yellow. Next question. Oh, no, sorry. Wait. No. Why did I come here? Guys, I'm very dramatic. This slide is there to just tell you that, guys, I have nothing to explain it here. Just memorize this. Look. See this? Epicardial APs are shorter in duration than endocardial. So basically, the ones at the surface, the action potential at the surface, like the heart is made up of epicardium and then the myocardium and then the endocardium. So basically, the one that is most superficial, the action potential is shorter because khalas, it's very, very small. Yani we know that the endocardium is, endo and myocardium are like the thickest compared to the epi. I'm not sure, but yani, this is what makes sense to me. So basically, the APs are shorter, all right? So the endo, they have longer action potentials, all right? And then just know that the depolarization, it goes from inside out, and then the repolarization outside inside, all right? Epi is outside, endo is inside. Tamam? I'll move on. Guys, this slide is memorization, and I can't explain anything in it. Okay, now in here, I think this is the last slide, right? Voila. Anyways, guys, in here, wait 1 second. Okay, in here, this is like a concept that you guys have to be familiar with. I'm so sure you guys remember from like MSK. There was a thing that was called absolute refractory period. Okay. So what is the absolute refractory period? It's the period of time where basically you didn't study this? That's okay. So basically, listen, absolute refractory period, it's just basically the period of time where no action potential can happen. Like no matter what you do, an action potential is not going to happen. All right? Like you can see in here, guys, this from phase 4 up into the like half of phase 3. There is not phase 4, sorry, this is phase 0. From phase 0 all the way to phase 3, like half phase 3, there will be no action potential happening. There will be no other thing. You remember, guys, how in the muscle we can have summation of two different action potentials. It's going to be stronger and stuff like that. In here, it's impossible. All right. So look at here. The absolute refractory period is all the way from phase 0 to the half of phase 3. So in here, it's impossible, like 100% impossible. We're not gonna have a new action potential. لو شو ما صار, like nothing would cause an action potential to happen in here. All right. And then we have something, this is ERP, which is the effective refractory period. If you see at the effective refractory period, it goes a bit much more than the the absolute refractory period. So the only difference is that in here, an action potential can be started, but it will not go to like the cells that are beside it. Guys, do you know how I'm pretty sure you know that the cardiomyocytes or the cardiac muscle cells, they're connected together through gap junctions, right? So we have gap junctions between the cardiomyocytes. So this is two different cardiomyocytes and they're connected by, let's assume my fingers are the gap junctions. So if in the effective refractory period, what happens is that this cardiomyocyte, this is 1 and this is 2, all right? This one here, it can have another action potential, but I cannot send it to here. So it will just end in this part. So it's just going to be like a small part of the heart, like as contracting, but it's very transient. It will go like this. This is not important. It's in the notes. I don't know if the doctor wants it, but in this slide, it's not mentioned. And then we guys have the relative refractory period. And the relative refractory period, it starts from the part of when the absolute ends all the way into the resting membrane. The relative refractory period is the area where basically we can generate an action potential. Okay, like it's possible to generate an action potential, but it needs more energy than usual. Like مثلا, let's say we needed, like it requires more energy. Let's just think of it this way. Okay, it requires a stimulus that is larger than a normal. Isn't the source the pacemaker? So doesn't this mean technically that the pacemaker is getting more than 1 IRP? It's just, listen, don't think of it this way. I don't know how to answer your question. Let me just finish this slide and I'll say. So guys, we said that basically this sentence is very important. In cardiac muscle, AP duration is approximately as long as the contractile phase, so summation cannot occur. So if you look in here, remember this graph? So basically, this is the contraction. You can see how the contraction literally almost lasts the whole, like literally the whole action potential. So why is this important? Because it does not allow summation of action potential. So basically in here, in the middle of this, ما فينا نفتح a new action potential. And why is this important? This is important because this allows, it allows for every systole or for every contraction, we're going to have a diastole or a relaxation period where the heart can fill. So you see the excitation or the refractory period or the AP duration will last almost the whole contraction time. Like if you look, literally guys, look at this. This is the picture that helps to understand this part. So you can see that the contraction is taking the whole period of this. Okay, and this is important because it means for each systole we have a diastole, and so basically for each contraction we have relaxation, which will allow the heart to fill up. All right. IRP is literally the relative refractory period that I just told you about. That is the period where basically it can happen, like an action potential can happen, but it requires a huge stimuli. Now SMP, ERP is the one I told you where basically ERP, the difference between ERP and ARP is that if an action potential happens, it cannot go to the nearby cell. So if this cell has an action potential and this one has ERP and it has an action potential extra, it cannot go into the nearby cell. It will just stick here. All right? It's written in the notes. No, RRP, we can form, like an action potential can happen and it can go to the nearby cell, but It will only happen if it is like triggered by a huge stimulus. You get me? Okay. Now SNP, I'm not sure if it's important. Ask your doctor, but SNP, it is like found in abnormal hearts. So just read the part of it and ask the doctor if it's important or not. From what I understood, it's like when an abnormal wave starts or something like that. Like I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if the doctor went over it. If he did, then just memorize whatever is written, because I don't think he's gonna like ask you anything but literally to just tell him like what is the meaning of it. All right. Exactly. He told you only to remember two things, which is the active and the absolute, sorry, and the relative. All right. So again, I'll go over them as Sarir. The absolute, there is no way on hell that an action potential can be generated. All right. So mustahil, like it will never happen. No matter whatever happens, it's not gonna happen. But in the relative refractive period, it can happen, but only if we have a huge stimulus. All right? That's the difference. Tamam? Guys, this is easy. This is MSK stuff. And the most important, Aslan, if you ask me what is the most important thing, the most important thing is to know that the AP duration is approximately as long as the contractile phase. Why? Because we won't have summation. And why is this important? Because for every systole, we're going to have a diastole. And this is important because if we have summation, then basically the heart might never like relax, might never fill up with blood, and it will be useless. All right? Tamam? So I'll move on. We have a question. Oh, no, we don't have a question. We have the last slide. Guys, remember at the beginning how I told you that we have basically the bus, which is the sinoatrial node, and then we have the AV and the Purkinje. And remember how I told you there is primary pacemaker? What does refractiveness like as a word mean? It means basically going back to normal, like refracting into your normal situation, like, you know, like it's a transient period where you're trying to go back to normal or something like that, I think. That's how I understand it. Like, I'm not sure. You can like Google it, I think. I'm not sure, صراحة. But for this slide, the most important thing is the overdrive suppression. Remember how I told you guys that we have like pacemaker cells, and the pacemaker cells make up the sinoatrial node, the AV node, and the Purkinje system. And I said, since they're pacemaker cells, so each cell has its own rhythm. And if you can look in here, the SA node has the 60 to 100, while the AV node has 40 to 60, and then the Purkinje system has 20 to 40. Okay, so basically each pacemaker cell has its own rhythm. But okay, I'm saying that each has its own rhythm. So how do we have, like, how is our heartbeat rhythmic? How is it only 60 to 100? Well, there is this thing called overdrive suppression. So as long as the SA node is there, it's gonna like push the AV node and the Purkinje system to work more than they can. Like you see, AV node usually its rhythmicity is between 40 to 60. But when SA node is there, it's going to be the primary pacemaker, and it's going to push the AV node and the Purkinje system to basically fire at the same rate as the SA node. And this process is called overdrive suppression. All right? So literally, you just can think of it as SA node is the boss. It's literally bossing everyone around, and it's asking them to work the same way she does. Like, okay, I want 60 to 100. Everyone is gonna produce 60 to 100. Unless the SA node, like basically we have like an injury or anything, unless it stops working, that's when basically مثلا the AV node will take over or the Purkinje system will take over. All right? So basically it's like they're showing power. So the most powerful is SA node. If SA node is no longer there, and it's by the way, it's the primary pacemaker. So if he asks you what is the primary pacemaker, it's SA node. if SA node is harmed or if it's not working anymore, then we have the AV node. The AV node will take over. And then if the AV node is not there anymore, the Purkinje system will take over. All right. So basically, what I'm saying is that when SA node is healthy, we're going to have 60 to 100 beats per minute. But let's say SA node is not there because of trauma, because of a pathology, because of a lot of things that you're going to take in third year. So let's say that SA node is no longer working, then AV node is going to take over, and then the heartbeat will become between this. And then if AV node is not working, the Purkinje system will take over, and then the heartbeat will become this. All right? And this is all due to overdrive suppression. So SA node is going to literally force them to go up to the level that it is working at. Okay? Is this clear? Do you have any question, guys? This is the last slide. We have a questions. Wait, we have a questions to solve, but do you have any questions before we go to the questions? Alhamdulillah. But before we go to the question, guys, is it easier now, or do you feel like it's still hard? Yay! Alhamdulillah. طيب يلا, let's solve these questions. So there are 3 questions, all right? نشوف إذا حتعرفوهم. So in the sinoatrial node or the SA node, phase 4 depolarization is attributable to. So what causes phase 4 depolarization, guys? What causes an increase in high? صح. It's the funny current. It's dying. You see the heart? Guys, the heart is like something I'm so proud of. Anyways, this one, which of the following which of the following is the result of an inward sodium current? So if we have an inward sodium current, what will happen? Let's see. It's B actually. So why? Because didn't we say that the inward sodium current will cause basically in Purkinje fibers repolarization. It doesn't cause repolarization, that's for sure. Because we said the only thing that causes repolarization is what? It's potassium, all right? So we remove D, we remove E. And then we're going to have C, plateau of the action potential in ventricular muscle. So basically, sodium has nothing to do with the plateau. It's calcium and potassium. So C is removed. Upstroke of the action potential in the sinoatrial node, no. The thing is, no, those two are kind of the same. So I think they mean by upstroke, they mean like the funny current. That's what they mean. All right. So the funny current, what will it cause? The progressive, what? The progressive increase in the progressive slow depolarization, right? What will cause, guys, yalla بسرعة. What will cause the depolarization, like the rapid depolarization in pacemaker cells? What ion? No, pacemaker cells. The rapid depolarization. Calcium, yeah, correct. What will cause rapid depolarization in normal cells, like the normal muscle cells? Sodium, صح. Yellow. During which phase of the ventricular action potential is the membrane potential closest to the potassium equilibrium potential? Yes, phase 4. Remember the transient potassium rectifier? The inward potassium rectifier. The inward potassium rectifier will try to keep the cell close to its equilibrium potential, which will result in phase 4. All right? Is this clear? خلاص? So that's all for my part. Now Naeem is going to take over to explain the excitation contraction coupling. Okay, so just 1 second. Hi Naeem, how are you? I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, I was muted from it. Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. I'll give you. Wait, are you co-host?
Yeah, I am a co-host.
Yes, perfect. So what is it called, guys? Just just go over the slides right now and study them مثلا tomorrow early morning.